All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dr. Tina Yang, and welcome to the Women's Health and Fertility Podcast. Today, I have a very special guest with me, one of my mentors and teachers, Julie Russell. Julie is a certified hypnotherapist, a QHHT practitioner, a senior licensed Reiki master teacher with the International Center for Reiki Training, and she's also a registered nurse and an integrative medicine practitioner. She is dedicated to her students and her clients and her practice of Reiki and natural integrative forms of healing. She rejoices in passing on her personal experiences, knowledge, and years of training to others. Julie has seen over 8,000 clients and has been teaching Reiki to others since 2004. She has found that Reiki can assist with anything from helping patients experience a state of deep relaxation, releasing energy within the body that may be causing any type of physical discomfort, or it can also assist to decrease the pain of mental and emotional distress. So I have known Julie for over 10 years, even though it feels like lifetimes that we have been connected. And she has been my teacher and mentor for Reiki and so many other things in my life. And I actually first saw Julie as a patient. I was This was back when my boys were really young and I was struggling with anxiety and stress, and I could not mitigate my stress and anxiety with my usual tools. So my yoga wasn't working, my working out, my meditation. And so around that same time, one of our associate acupuncturists was practicing acupuncture with Reiki, and our patients loved the combination of the two treatments together. So I decided I was going to look into taking a Reiki class, and one of the first teachers that came up on my search when I was looking for Reiki teachers in Orange County was Julie. And little did I know that when I was seeking out Reiki for my practice, I was actually being introduced to Reiki for my own healing journey. So before I took the Reiki class with Julie, I knew I had to receive a session from her to kind of see what I was getting myself into and to make sure she was the right fit as a teacher for me. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to go in for a treatment. And I have to say, I walked into her office not knowing what to expect with a very open mind, lots of pent up stress and anxiety that was ongoing. And we were together probably for about an hour and a half. And all I could remember of the session was a floating sensation during our session and being in a complete state of relaxation and surrender. And I walked out feeling like a completely different person. And the heavy sensation in my chest from my anxiety had been lifted. And Reiki had such a profound effect on me that I immediately signed up for all of Julie's classes. I signed up for her Reiki 1 and 2 class and eventually all the other classes that she offered. So I'm a big fan of Julie's. And since my initial visit with Julie and my first Reiki 1 class with her, we have co-treated so many patients together. I can't even
Mhm.
remember all the patients. There's just been
No,
so
me
many
neither.
wonderful experiences that my patients have had with you. And I have sent many of my fertility patients to Julie to help them find peace along their fertility journey and to also help them connect with their spirit baby or their unborn child and to help welcome them into their lives. So it's such a pleasure to welcome you, Julie, to my podcast. And I would love if you could just share your story and your path or your journey to Reiki. And I know you have such an extensive background in Western medicine. So it's kind of unusual, I think, to be able to integrate the two together. So I'd love for you to share how you found Reiki and what led you to becoming a Reiki and a natural healing and integrative medical practitioner.
Okay. Well, about 22 years ago, maybe a little more, my kids were going off to college and I'd heard the word complementary medicine. And I was a nurse. I've been a nurse for over 50 years in healthcare. And I thought, oh, that's an interesting idea. I wonder what that means. And so I started looking at what is complementary medicine. And along the way, I saw a little article in a, I don't know, magazine or something, where it talked about Reiki and said it was a Japanese healing technique for stress reduction and relaxation. And unlike me, I didn't even look it up. I just signed up for the class. And I think I was super busy at the time. And so I
Sure.
just showed up at the class and took my Reiki 1 class, and I thought it was the craziest thing I'd ever heard of. But I had all these, what I would call now awakened experiences in the class that I couldn't quantify on a like a medical or even a psychological level, like things that I felt or sensations that I had, or even meeting what they called a guide. I didn't even know, what do you mean a guide?
Hmm.
And so after the class, I felt like your session, very at peace, very calm. I felt like someone gave me polarized sunglasses.
Hmm.
And everything I looked at had more color, more texture, more life, more vibrancy. And again, I thought, am I just making this up? Is it for real? So I decided to be like a researcher and just use Reiki on everything. And
I love that.
see, and let Reiki show me. In fact, I would talk to Reiki like I would talk to a person. I'd
Hmm.
say, if you're for real, show me what you got. I want to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that this energy has intelligence, that it's powerful, that it has the ability to heal and align not only me, but other people, places, and things. And so that's what I started with. And it was such a profound shift in my awareness that I just became more and more interested in not only Reiki, but metaphysics, mind body medicine, and also higher levels of consciousness, because Reiki also helped me to tap into higher states of awareness than I had. So I would say before that, I looked at the world with my eyes open. I didn't really do what people would call inner work. So I didn't even realize or understand that we can get a lot of information for our own healing work or decision making, not only from what we see cognitively with our mind and our eyes open, but also that we have access to a lot of inner knowledge when we look inside of ourselves, which often is done by closing your eyes. And so that was kind of the beginning of me getting interested in Reiki, and then other things too. I went for a hypnosis session originally 25 years ago for a physical issue, or for a behavior that I wanted to get rid of. And it was a behavior that was not healthy for me. But I didn't think I could ever change it, because I tried and nothing worked. And I went for a series of 3 hypnosis sessions. And again, it taught me that a lot of times what blocks us is what I call junk in the trunk, or things that are happening in the subconscious mind that stop us from creating things that we want with our conscious mind. So that's what also got me interested in hypnosis, and also integrating hypnosis with Reiki. And then probably after that led me to past life regression and quantum healing hypnosis therapy. So
I
that's
love
kind
how
of where it
you,
started. Yeah,
right. I love how you blend all of your modalities together.
yeah.
And I mean, they're such a perfect fit and match. And the
Uh-huh.
integration is so powerful.
Yeah. Well, I'm always learning more. I consider myself a forever student. And I would say the one thing is I'm always asking, the universe or God or whatever you use for that higher knowledge that's available to us, show me more.
Hmm.
Because I realize that I'm like a person with a small flashlight in a big room, and I don't really have a clue everything that's going on. So I'm always looking to expand my understanding and awareness. And I really have, even as a nurse, before I even started studying natural forms of healing and metaphysics, I always had this thought in my mind that we're missing something, and that I've always had the thought in my mind that people can heal themselves, but I didn't know what that meant, or
Hmm.
how you could get to that point. And so that's been kind of a lifelong learning and searching for me.
That's wonderful, Julie. And I love how you are a forever student. I think we share that same
Yeah.
that same passion for learning. So I kind of wanted to go back to some like basic questions. You did talk a little bit about Reiki, but how would you define Reiki in just a few words? Because Reiki can mean so many things. And
So
how is it used as a healing modality?
okay, so for a healing modality, a person takes a Reiki class, and in the Reiki class, they learn how to do what they call it healing touch, but they actually can be used by touching the skin like this, or hovering above the body, or even what we call beaming, which is you send the Reiki through your hands and your palm energy centers to a person, place, or thing. It's considered a natural form of healing, and really, it's the simplicity of it is incredible. Because basically, you just have to say that you're willing to be a channel of this healing energy. And the teacher, depending on what school of Reiki you're in, they have what they call an attunement process. In that process, um, the energy aligns the person's physical and energetic field so that they can be a channel for the healing energy to flow. So it's more of a spiritual practice, but in some ways it works a lot like acupuncture. So
Hmm.
you guys do it with putting needles in meridians and nadis and energy centers, where you more physically go into the fields. Where Reiki, we do it more, I would call more on a spiritual or esoteric level, where we're channeling energy that will also put the body, the mind, the spirit, and the soul into alignment.
Yeah, and I think because of the similarities between acupuncture and Reiki, it was such an easy thing to combine for
Hmm.
us in our practice.
Yeah,
And, even though acupuncture can be so relaxing and also sort of has that down-regulating effect on the nervous system, I think when you
yes,
add Reiki to it, there's a whole nother level of
yes,
relaxation that,
yes,
it's really hard to define it, but patients that have experienced both, either just acupuncture by itself or the combination of the two, they definitely prefer the combination.
yeah,
So,
I would
and that's what
agree.
I've noticed in my practice in the last 10 years since I became a Reiki practitioner is that, when you have somebody that is really struggling to get to that next level of healing. And if, stress and anxiety is on that forefront of what's blocking them, Reiki does a really great job of unblocking, some of those areas in our mind, our
Yes.
consciousness, and our body, beyond any other modality of treatment that,
Hmm.
I've been able to incorporate. So I'm so grateful that I was able to find you, Julie, and to find this modality of treatment. And, I can't even for myself, the impact that it's had on my health and my ability to really just to manage my stress and to
Hmm.
know, like, whenever I have those thoughts of when I'm going down that rabbit hole of stress, to just
Yes.
kind of go back and think about the Reiki state and that sense of peace and calmness.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a like a almost like a guided imagery or
Hmm.
visualization to bring that my consciousness back into that level.
Yeah.
So then
Well,
everything
because you're
else just
going into higher states of awareness.
Mhm.
So you
Right.
stop looking outside and start allowing the higher aspects of yourself
Mhm.
to bring you peace and calm. I always say too that if you wanted to quantify Reiki in the simplest terms, if you just can go with the fact that it allows for deep relaxation and
Mhm.
stress reduction. And when the body's relaxed, the body can heal. The
Right.
body has
Right.
a lot of intelligence of its own. But when it's not in alignment, when it's stressed, when the central nervous system is out of line, if it's waiting for the big monster to show up,
Mhm.
it can't heal itself. It will,
Right.
over time, it will just go into not being aligned anymore, and that's when disease comes in.
Sure.
And it could be mental, emotional, physical, and or spiritual. I think that's the other thing I loved about Reiki as I studied it more and more in Western medicine. We work with the body, the mind, and the emotions, but we never deal with the spirit and the soul. And what I love about Reiki is it works with every aspect of who you are.
Mhm.
And the other thing I loved about it is that it's not about me knowing anything. It's about me allowing myself to be a channel of the energy and letting the energy and the intelligence that created the universe to help the person go into that alignment state. And when that alignment state when it comes into order, um, amazing, sometimes miraculous things happen.
And I am a very, very good example of that. And just being able to get out of that survival mode so that you can
Hmm.
start thriving and dropping into that parasympathetic state,
Yes.
and really allowing your body to tap into its innate self-healing mechanism,
Yeah.
that we all have within ourselves. So I guess a question to ask, that I get a lot from patients is what can you expect during a Reiki session? And how is it practiced? Is it practiced in person? Can it be practiced virtually or through distance Reiki? So that's always been so fascinating to me that Reiki has, there's so many options as far as how you can practice Reiki.
Yes, that's probably one of the first things in my Reiki 1 class that they taught us is that you can do what's called remote Reiki, which I was like, what? Remote Reiki? What are you
Yes.
talking about? That's the kookiest thing ever.
Right.
And so what happens is one of the things when you become a practitioner is you're given tools and techniques so that you're able to connect to a person remotely, a person, a place, or a thing, really remotely, um, which I had never heard of and thought that just sounds odd. Little did I know back then when I started researching it that many people knew that whether you do Reiki or not, remote viewing has been used for thousands of years by many
Wow.
cultures, including our own. And
Mhm.
our own government would train people on remote viewing, especially for military installation before we had all these spy planes and things. They would
Mhm.
train people how to do remote viewing, where they would go into that inner state and they would connect to areas. And that in that case, they were doing it to tell the government what they saw in different places. So you can look that up if you're interested, but that's a form of remote viewing. For Reiki, I would say we do a form of remote viewing where we connect to the person, but the intention behind it is to send Reiki or healing energy to that person,
Mhm.
place, or thing.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think when I first heard about it, it seemed very foreign to me, especially being such a tactile practitioner as
Hmm.
an acupuncturist and being so hands-on.
Yeah, me
But I
too.
will have to say that I did experience a remote Reiki session when my mom, well, I didn't experience it, but I was around it. My mom was really ill in the hospital, and I had a friend who was in Taiwan, and she performed a distance Reiki treatment on my mom. And my mom was very limited to people to come, visit her. So I was like racking my brain. What else can I do to help my mom heal? And so my friend offered to do a remote Reiki session. And the most interesting thing was I kind of told my mom, my friend's going to do it around this time. And so my mom being kind of in and out because of medications, she was aware that something was going to happen, but she didn't really remember. But
Mhm.
after the Reiki session the next day, I had spoken to her and she said, I asked her, how did you feel around this time? I think it was like 7 p.m. in the evening. She goes, interesting. I felt really relaxed and I felt like more alert than I've felt in weeks. And so even my mom who can be was, at that time she was very disconnected to her body and she wasn't very aware that mind body spirit connection was definitely something that was not something that my mom had gotten a good grasp of. So having someone like her say that, I thought, wow, there is something about remote Reiki because she could
Mhm.
actually feel it. She
Yeah,
felt vibration and warmth in her body. And the way she described it was how I would have described receiving a Reiki session.
yeah,
So that was my experience with remote Reiki. So after that, I thought, okay, there's something about remote Reiki, and if it's not an option for somebody to get a hands-on in-person session, it's such a great alternative.
yes, I
So,
agree.
yeah.
In fact, I would say my remote is, in doing thousands of sessions, my remote sessions are as good, sometimes better than in person.
Yes, they
So
are. I'll attest to that, Julie, as I have
so
received a
Reiki's
remote
definitely
session.
shown me that. But I mean, part of this is we're just, we're beings in the what I call these bodies or spacesuits, and it's not part of our culture to be taught that these things are possible. And so it seems like a big leap.
Mhm.
But now we have a lot of science that shows how everything is interconnected. I mean, that's
Right.
not even that, it's like metaphysics and science is finally coming together.
I
And a
love
lot
it.
of these things are no longer just uh, things that they teach in the East. We
Mhm.
now teach
Mm.
these in the West too.
Right. Right, and I love that there's so much more research and data and
Yes,
information about it
absolutely.
too.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the common conditions that you've seen, Julie, and what have you treated with Reiki over the past decades that you've been
I'm
a
trying to
practitioner?
probably anything and everything. It's funny because I do put on my website that I'm a nurse. And my specialty when I was in nursing for 50 years and my specialty was mental health. Even though I didn't put that on my website, a lot of my clients were people that came for depression, anxiety, sleep disorders,
Mhm.
things like that. But then I did have a number of people that also came out of curiosity, people that also felt like there was something more and they heard about Reiki and they wanted, like you, to experience it.
Mhm.
I also, along the way, started working with a lot of animals. So not only do I work on people, but I've worked on probably thousands of animals over the years.
That's
Um,
amazing, Julie.
yeah.
What
Um,
is your nickname?
oh,
Doctor
Dr.
Doolittle?
Doolittle. I always laugh because when I went to see that movie, when it came out, I kept laughing. I'm like, oh my God, I became Dr. Doolittle because I actually just wrote an article about this. I can tap into an animal and I can communicate with them, which sounds again very odd, very unusual, but I I'm able to do that, which can be super helpful when the animal's trying to express something either
Mhm.
to the person that's their guardian, or even if they're out in nature and there's something
Mhm.
they want to share. And most animals are many animals are very, they love Reiki.
I'm sure.
So because many of them, everything has intelligence, but for them, they're very attuned to energy.
Mhm.
So when they feel energy, and especially Reiki, such a loving, compassionate energy, they generally really love it.
That's so cool. I love that.
Hmm.
So in terms of the number of treatments, I get this question a lot about any kind of modality that I refer out for. How many treatments usually does it take for patients to start seeing results with Reiki?
Usually for me, one.
Mhm. Wow.
That's also very interesting, right? Because I know a lot of Reiki practitioners that see clients numerous times over numerous months. And it's not that I'm opposed to that, but the way Reiki works with me, generally people come for one session and they get what they want or need. Now, does that mean that the issues are completely gone? Many times, yes. Or they have more insight into the issues, or the issues continue, but the way they look at them are different.
Sure.
Um, but it's not common for me to have people come back numerous times. Sometimes people will ask me, should I come back? And Reiki always, again, I can talk to Reiki like a person, and Reiki generally will say to me, let them decide.
Mhm.
So I will say to them, give yourself a couple days, maybe a week, see how you feel, see if you feel this was a benefit, see how far this session took you. And if you want to go deeper or further, then call me back. And occasionally someone comes in for maybe a couple more sessions,
Mhm.
but that's not the norm. Usually it's one and they got what they want. Now, that being said, sometimes I would say we're like onions. So sometimes they've gone as far as they want at that time.
Sure.
And then 3 months, 6 months, a year later, they'll call me and say, okay, now I'm ready to go deeper.
Mhm. Mhm.
Now I keep thinking, I gotta go see Julie. I gotta go see Julie. But that's your higher self. That's the inner guidance system that we all have. And I think Reiki helps people because I teach about that when they come to see me, that I'm here to be like the concierge. I'm here to be the channel. I'm here, I can
Mhm.
give you information that I'm guided to give you, but the best guidance system is your own. And when you get clear and aligned, you often get all the answers yourself.
Right, right. And I think that's so powerful too because you're helping patients like you said see things in a different through a different lens.
Yes,
And hopefully it's a clearer lens and it's a more
yes,
positive outlook so
yes,
that they have the ability and the tools to be able to work through things. Whereas before receiving Reiki, they were struggling and they were hitting a little bit of a block,
yeah.
right? And so having that ability to do that and open up like that, just a
What
whole
I've
nother
seen,
lens
what I've
completely.
seen a lot lately in my sessions that has been so interesting to me is that people will come with certain, because I always ask, what do you want? Whatever you want, let's write it all down. We're going to ask for everything you want,
Mhm.
whatever you're willing to let go of, and whatever you'd like to bring into your life. And what I find is that oftentimes what's blocking the change is the picture that they have created in their mind. And when the mind is powerful, when we create a picture, that's what the body thinks needs to happen.
Right.
And so what I've been finding recently is that I've been able to work with clients energetically and through discussion, through what I call intuitive guidance, to what is your picture and what are you willing to change in your picture?
Mhm.
Or are you willing to change the picture and see if the picture could change? And what I'm finding is that Reiki is clearing those pictures that are the obstacles.
Right.
And then people are having amazing insights and things are just like literally coming into their awareness and everything's shifting sometimes within days.
Mhm. Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it. I've experienced it myself
Hmm.
too.
Yeah, and also I think because they have a wider perception
Mhm.
and their picture isn't so solid, that's when the healing really comes faster.
Well, and I also notice for patients and for myself that things slow down a little bit too. And I think
Hmm.
when you have like the monkey mind, there's
Yes,
probably many pictures and many thoughts going through your mind that it is hard. It's hard for you to move forward. It's hard for you to discern or to see clarity in your
yes,
decision making process. So
yes,
I think Reiki does a really good job of just bringing everything to a really nice, manageable pace. And
yes.
then you're able to absorb and release whatever you're not supposed to hold on to, and
Hmm.
absorb and take in what you're supposed to take in for your higher good.
Perfectly
Um,
said.
yeah.
Yeah, because if, as
It's
you let things go, you make room for new things to come in.
right, right.
And when your mind is envisioning and allowing these new things that you're wanting, or it could even be you're in a situation that maybe you're not able or willing to change, but your perception about it changes
Mhm,
because
mhm.
everything's perception.
That's right. And how do you tolerate it? How does your body respond? What's the visceral reaction to the
Exactly.
thought? Because I think, that some of that, subconscious or the knee-jerk reaction, may not be the same. You may not be
Yes.
triggered the way you were triggered prior to, allowing Reiki to come in and heal heal that thought or that situation.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's been really profound, and I see it in my patients. Like I really, and some of the things that see a lot of is the fear and anxiety around a challenge or around a block, and I'll speak specifically more about fertility, the block around becoming a mom,
Mhm.
and the block around I'm not good enough, or there's something wrong with me, or I don't deserve to be a mom. Those are the types of challenges and blocks that I run into with my patients time and time and again. And
Yeah.
so I think it's so important to be able to release those negative associations and those negative blocks from the
Mhm.
consciousness of my patients. And Reiki is one of the best tools to do that, along with acupuncture.
Yeah.
So this really like completely segues into my next question for you is how can Reiki help patients prepare for conception and allow for them to, welcome this unborn child into their life?
So what I've found in working with your clients, especially, is that what you said, the fear factor, or
Mm,
the it's never going to happen to me, or this is too much, and on it goes. Um, and what I find is that Reiki will go in and any of those thoughts, as long as the person's willing to let them go.
hmm.
And some of them can be unconscious. So some of
Sure.
it is not even in you could say a million times, I'm not going to think this, I'm not going to think this. And then you
Right.
just think it all that much more. So what
Hmm.
I love about Reiki is Reiki will work with the conscious mind and the subconscious mind to clear um, any kind of energy or thoughts that are of a what we would call a lower vibration.
Hmm.
And so also it's going to align and get everything your life force energy in alignment for conception. The other thing that's happened to me is that I work with the spirit baby realm. So this is a new concept to me that came in probably about 9 years ago, when my son's wife got pregnant, and I had two situations where the unborn spirit and soul of the child that was going to incarnate came to me to introduce themselves. And I thought, what the heck is this all about? And so I was working on one of your clients, and during the session, her spirit baby came in and it started showing me pictures of itself, and it showed me it like talked telepathically to me about what it wanted to tell its soon to be mom and things like that.
Fascinating.
And when we were talking about the session afterwards, I said, well, you're never going to believe what happened, because I don't even believe it, but this is
Mhm.
what happened. And then that's when she told me about the book Spirit Baby. She goes, have you read this book? I said, I'd never even heard of this. And then I bought the book and I read it, and it was fabulous. I was ready to jump on a plane and go meet the guy who
Right.
had been doing this kind of work for 50 years. Unfortunately, he passed away, but he wrote a wonderful book on how all of this is orchestrated before you even come in, as into your human life. And so I've been able to do that with a lot of the clients, even though I tell them, I can't promise you that we'll connect with your spirit baby, but we're going to sure ask, and we're going to be open to it if you want to. And usually it happens where we can do that connection, where if there's any healing that needs to be done on the part of the spirit baby, we can ask the Reiki to help with that. If there's anything on the side of the mother or the father, that may be blocking the conception,
Hmm.
we can ask
Hmm.
Reiki to help with that. And some of the tools and techniques, I always tell the clients to buy that book and use some of the visualizations and some of he calls them chanting, or you could call them affirmations, that he says will help to facilitate pregnancy.
One more time, what's the name of the book and who's the author?
Oh, I was thinking I should have looked it up. It's called Spirit Babies, and I'll tell you in 1 second about it. Do you want to add
Walter
anything to
Walter
that while I look it
Maki-Chen.
up?
It's Walter Maki-Chen, right?
Yes.
Yes, okay. That's something that I add to my treatment plans for my patients, my
Yeah.
initial fertility visits. I always recommend that book. So it's
Mm-hmm.
Spirit Babies by Walter Maki-Chen.
Yes.
Okay. And it's
And
available through Audible, right?
I think so, yes.
Mm.
Yes, it is, because I have both. Because I've listened to it a number of times, because for me as a practitioner, it's all case studies. I mean, it's just sessions after sessions of what
Right.
happened when he worked with different people. But what I really liked about it is it wasn't just about that. It was also gives you very, very good tools and techniques
Mhm.
that you can use at home that are not hard, that will help for conception, but also after conception. Because we also know, even in Western medicine, that everything that goes on with you during pregnancy, the baby feels it all.
Right.
And so he talks a lot too about how you can start to form a very positive, healthy, healing relationship with the child before birth.
That's so true. And I think when you have the book on Audible, because there's so many meditations in there
Hmm.
and chants, it's nice because you can hear,
Yes.
you can play those meditations.
Uh-huh.
And if it's something that you're practicing on a regular basis, it makes it
Yeah.
easier
I
to
think
listen
it's a
to.
whole, to me, it was a whole nother way of thinking about all of this that I had never thought of or never had awareness.
Mhm.
Because I do a lot of inner work, I was aware that we choose our families and that this is not, it's not like a random thing. And that's why, when parents say, why are all my kids so different? Why do they all act so different? I don't understand some of the things they do say or their core being. It's because this is all orchestrated at a higher level before they come in.
Right.
So it makes perfect sense to me. And he talks about that in the book. But I always tell people, again, I don't try to talk people into anything, but I think it's good to have an open mind and at least educate yourself on other possible ideas behind fertility and pregnancy and having children.
Well, what a gift you have, Julie, to be able to connect with these spirit babies.
Yeah, it's always
And,
really fun.
I think that's like that's just so incredible.
Yeah,
And for, your patients that are able to communicate through you, that's such a gift.
yeah.
And how
No, I
wonderful that
really,
is.
I find it really enjoyable and interesting because it, yeah, everyone is completely different. They're never the
Mhm.
same. The issues are never the same. The experience is never the same. And the other part that I find very interesting is oftentimes when the person is getting the session, they get information directly. It's not even all just
Nice.
coming from me.
Nice.
They'll
Yeah.
say, "Oh, I felt my baby.
Mhm.
I felt him around me. I felt him near me. I felt what if I say, oh, he kept hovering around a certain area of your or it, because I also learned that it's not a he doesn't mean it's going to be a he next time. Uh, I learned that the hard way with my second grandson, because when
Mhm.
he came in, this is kind of a funny story. So I'm not thinking about babies. I'm just doing my daily meditation and my self Reiki. And all of a sudden, this little being comes into my awareness. And I see pictures in my head of like strawberry shortcake and this little female voice, like a little girl voice. And it's like, oh, I'm so excited you're gonna be my grandma. I can't wait to come and have my next, life with you. And I just wanted to let you know I'm coming. And so after that, I called my son and I said, I'm sorry, I try not to get in your business, but I told him what happened. I go, is your wife pregnant? And he goes, no, not that I know of. And so I said, okay, well, this is what happened. I thought I should just let you know. But I was convinced that they were going to have a girl. And and so a week later, my son called me back and he goes, Mom, you know what? You were right. She was pregnant, but she didn't know it yet. She hadn't taken the pregnancy test. So then I was like, oh, I'm so excited for you because I know you want a girl and it's going to be a girl and blah, blah, blah. Well, no, it was a boy. But what's really interesting about that particular boy is that when he was younger, between the ages of like 2 and 6, he loved everything girls loved. He had like 2 years of his life out. He wouldn't wear anything but pink. Everything
Wow.
had to have glitter. He liked rainbows. He liked lollipops. He liked unicorns. He really wasn't interested in traditional boy things.
So
Highly
interesting.
emotional child.
Nice.
And now he's 7, and a lot of that has gone away. But now what spirit tells me is that sometimes when the spirit babies come, they may come in as their last incarnation. And so his last incarnation that he came in as, I guess, was a female, and this time he chose to be a male.
Wow.
But yeah,
That
that was
that's
something I learned.
that's
So
so
when people
incredible.
ask me that, I'll say, well, this is how they showed themselves to me, but that doesn't necessarily mean
No
that's,
promises on gender reveal.
yes, no promises on gender. And I
Yeah.
think in that book, he talks about that too. But at that time,
Mhm.
I had no clue. Because I'd never read his book or heard of him. But that was an interesting experience too. I think that probably happened to me too, so that I wouldn't say that I just made it up, right? Because when it
Right.
happened with my first grandson, and then when it happened with the second one, and she didn't even know she was pregnant yet, I'm like, I can't make this up.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't like I was thinking, oh, am I going to be a grandma again? No, I was the
Yeah,
farthest thing
these
from my
these
mind.
babies came in and wanted to start talking to you
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
communicating.
Yeah.
So, what I've realized too is that these little spirit babies have their own agenda.
Oh, yeah,
They have their
absolutely.
own timeline, they have their
Yep.
own agenda. They call the shots even before they're in utero.
Hmm.
You know?
Mike's, this is going to be one that may bring some solace to some people,
Mhm.
is that if there is a spirit baby that has definitely chosen you or your partner or both of you, even if there's a pregnancy that doesn't come to fruition,
Mhm.
they will come in again in another form. Whether
Mm,
that be another pregnancy, that could even be an adoption procedure where
fascinating.
they come
Yeah.
in through another way with the intention that you're going to be their parents.
Wow, that makes
So the
sense.
universe works in ways, we're so linear, we don't realize that there's lots of different ways. If that spirit baby is meant to be with you and you want it and
Mhm.
you're ready and you've done your healing work for that to happen, it can happen traditional or non-traditional ways.
Thank you for
It's
saying
like a
that,
force
Julie.
that cannot be stopped.
Thank you for saying that because I think that, there's so much, like if a patient's going through IVF treatments or some type of assisted reproductive technique, I
Yeah,
think they're so fixated on that path.
yes.
But I love how you talk about there's multiple ways for the
Hmm.
spirit baby to come in
Yes, that's
and
what they tell
multiple
me.
ways. Yeah, there's
Mhm.
multiple ways to become parents too.
Yes. What
So,
I'm told is even through adoption, it's all planned on a higher level.
hmm,
And it's also that, it may be that that spirit wants to um, experience having different biological parents and a different genetic outcome.
sure.
But here's the other thing that I have never read that this has been proven, but when people, also I've heard, or what spirit tells me is that when you do, uh, if, when you get pregnant and let's say you use another sperm donor or another egg and you say, oh, I'm carrying this child, but it's not my sperm or it's not my egg.
Hmm.
There's a lot of genetic material that's being, um, hmm, how do I, imprinted is the word they're telling me, even while during gestation.
That makes sense.
So I think in Western medicine, we haven't figured that part out yet, but that's what they tell me is
Well,
happening.
I mean, there is talk about epigenetics,
Hmm.
right, and environment. So, the womb that the baby develops in,
Yes,
so the baby does pick up, parts of you because they're in your womb for 9 months.
right.
So, yeah.
That's what they tell me, that,
Mhm.
don't be disappointed if you say, oh, I had to use someone else's egg, because they're still going to get lots of your genetics.
I totally believe it, and I see it all the time with my patients,
Mm-hmm.
but that's a great reminder, so thank you for mentioning that.
Uh-huh.
Julie, I could talk to you forever. And our
Well, it's an
conversations
interesting subject that you don't hear much. You don't hear it a
it
lot.
is.
I'm glad that your clinic is open-minded to
Mhm.
expand beyond the physical realm of pregnancy um, and even after pregnancy, because there's so much more to it than just the physiological way of helping it along.
For
That's just
sure,
a small part of the whole thing.
for sure, and I have learned that over the last 20 years of practice too, that
Hmm.
it's becoming a mom, it's beyond physical.
Yes, it definitely is. And
Mm.
in Western medicine, we don't talk about any of that. We don't learn
Right,
any of that. It's
right.
all anatomical. It's all like we're just
Physiologics,
a
yep.
processing machine.
And
And
I think that's why there's such a demand for what you and I do is because patients are
mhm,
looking for more. They need that mind, body, spirit connection. And then now that connection to their spirit baby, that even more than ever is
yeah,
so important for patients to be able to have that connection.
I
So
want to just say one other thing,
sure.
that for anyone who listens to this, another thing I would highly recommend, if you like what we're saying, or if you go get a Reiki session and you like it, learn to do Reiki at least on yourself and your
Hmm.
child. It will help you immensely in helping to raise your child as a tool. And would I say it's the only tool in your toolbox? No, but it's a fabulous tool for being a good parent, because it's a way to shower yourself and your child with love and compassion that's deeper and stronger than earthly love and compassion.
I love that, Julie, and I'm a prime example of that because after I became Reiki certified, it completely changed my outlook as a parent too,
Oh,
and
really?
being
Yeah,
able to help
me too.
my kids when they were struggling. I think
Hmm.
nowadays school, there's so much pressure with school,
Yeah,
and if you have kids that are high achievers, they're so hard on themselves. And so
yes.
sometimes I would just, channel some Reiki or, I'll ask them and they'll be like, "Mom, what are you doing? Are you doing Reiki on me?" And I'm like, "It's okay. As long as
Yeah,
you feel better, that's the goal, right?"
that's right. That's right.
So
I've even had whole families come to me to learn
mhm,
Reiki, so that would become a family event. I
I
had
love
one
that.
family with three children. They were 10, 8, and 5, and they all got attuned to Reiki and they learned how to do Reiki. And they would have a time at their home where they would give Reiki sessions to each other,
That's amazing.
right? Wouldn't
I
that
love
be
that.
a nice thing to do in your family?
Yes. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So that's the other thing to think about, as because it's a natural form of healing.
Well,
And
and I love that it's a tool that you can use on yourself. And I think
yes,
when I took your class, I didn't realize that. I
yeah,
didn't realize that it was actually a tool that was going to help me. So I practice self Reiki on myself all the time.
yeah, me too.
So if I'm having a hard time sleeping, if I'm feeling a little bit more stressed or my anxiety levels are creeping up,
Yep,
I'll just do some self Reiki on myself and it usually really helps me to kind of calm down and, have a renewed perspective on things.
yes.
So I'm forever grateful for that.
I
For
feel the same way.
Mhm.
I feel
Reiki as
like
a
when
self-healing
I always
tool.
tell my students, you're getting the keys to the universe,
I
because
love that.
Reiki will help you in any way you want help.
Mhm.
Whether that's you want to bless your food, you want to have a beautiful garden, you want to be a good parent, you want to keep yourself in alignment, and or whatever else you're wanting for yourself or your family, it's a great tool and it works like nothing. I've taken, I can't tell you how many classes over 20 plus years.
Yes.
And that's why Reiki is still the one thing that it's so simple, but it's so profound.
Yeah,
And that's why I
I
teach
second
it,
that.
and that's why I do it for
Mhm.
people.
Julie, you've been such an amazing mentor and such a great teacher to so many people. I know you recently moved from Orange County, so tell
I
us a little
did.
bit about your new practice and what's the best way for listeners to reach out to you. I know you offer virtual classes as well as virtual sessions,
I do.
or if anybody wants to visit you in Sedona, that's also
Uh-huh.
another option.
Yep.
How is everything coming along in your new practice?
Oh, I love it. I just opened my new Reiki studio October 7th. And this is a
Congratulations.
great Reiki story too, because I retired after 50 years in healthcare in in the end of May. And then in June, my husband and we've always loved the Sedona area. So we thought we're going to come out and take a 3-week vacation after I retired. So during that time, I got guidance, I got inspiration that we should look at a place to live. We weren't planning on moving. And literally, we found this town called Cottonwood, which is 20 minutes south of Sedona. It's a cute little western town and also lots of different modalities, healers here. It's kind of like Sedona spreading out to the south.
Mhm.
And and so we found a house and we put down a down payment and 2 months later, here we are.
When things are meant to be,
Yeah, it was
everything
meant to
just
be.
unfolds.
Yes,
You
exactly.
know,
I
it
remember
Mhm.
when we drove into the complex where we were going to live, it was as clear as a bell to me that we were supposed to move here. There, and my husband kept saying, "Are you sure? Are you sure?" I never had 1 minute of self-doubt.
Wow.
But I
That's
think that was Reiki. That was Reiki when, because I always ask Reiki to help guide me as to
Mhm.
what my next steps are and what am I here to learn and how can I
Sure.
grow? And it was such a profound knowing that that's what I was supposed to do. And so for me and my husband, it's super fun because we're in our 70s and we're starting a whole new life.
That's so beautiful, Julie. I'm so
Yeah,
happy for you guys.
yeah. So we're loving
So,
it.
yeah, so I know that I'm gonna share all your information in my show notes, your new website. Question for you, if somebody wanted to reach out just to learn a little bit more about your classes or about your sessions, do you offer discovery calls or, like,
Absolutely.
free
So
15-minute
you could,
consults
probably
or
the fastest way to reach me is by text.
Okay,
So you can
great.
text to my phone number and then we'll just set up a time to talk. I probably should put that on my website, but yes, absolutely, people do that all the time. Or you can email me. I have a policy to answer any calls, texts, or emails within 24 hours. So if for some reason
Nice.
I don't get back to you, it probably means somehow I missed it, or
Mhm.
maybe I got a lot of them on one day and somehow you didn't get put on my list. So
Okay. That's
don't be
good to know,
afraid to
Julie.
recontact me if that occasionally happens.
Okay, sounds great. And of course, Julie, you are on my list to have you come out to teach a Reiki circle the next time you're in town.
Perfect.
So I'm excited about that sometime in 2025. No
Yep,
pressure.
I'll be there. Probably
So
summertime.
summertime. Okay, you
Yeah.
bet. Any upcoming events for you that you want to share?
Well, if they go to my website, which is Reiki Verde Valley .com, it has all my class schedules for 2025. And then I am doing an online Karuna Reiki class, which is an advanced class. I'm actually doing that the next tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday. And
Nice.
then I do have more time now, so occasionally I can do a private class
Okay, that's
during
good
the
to
week if
know.
someone feels like they need a private class for some reason and they can't. Most of my classes I do in person. And if you're in the Orange County, LA area, I'm about 7-hour drive from you.
Okay.
But
Well,
that's
it's a
not a bad
nice
idea if you can do it.
Yeah, it's kind of like a nice little retreat,
Yes.
you go out
Um,
to Sedona and
yes,
then take an amazing Reiki class.
yes.
So, it's a
It's a
nice
great
little
way to put you
self-care,
in that state of mind because
right?
that's a whole different kind of beautiful and very slow pace here. I always
Sign
laugh.
me up.
In Cottonwood, we have a small downtown. It's about 8 blocks long, and
Mhm.
it's a 25 mile per hour speed limit. I always
Wow.
laugh because I'm like, oh, you'd never see this in Orange County ever, ever.
I know. Our average speed limit is like 60, at least in South Orange
Exactly,
County.
exactly. And
Right.
nothing wrong with that. I mean, I loved it when I lived there, but this is probably
Mhm.
the exact opposite. Everybody is on what I used to call it Hawaii time. Now I call it Arizona time.
Nice.
If they say they're going to come at 9, it means between 9 and 10.
Okay. Well, I would love to come out and visit you, and I think there's probably a lot of folks that would love to take a little trip out to Sedona and then also get some Reiki training
Yes.
too.
Yeah,
So,
well, give me a call if you have any questions. I'm happy to help you. I do have a lot of friends in the Reiki community, so even if maybe you're looking for someone in a different area, I might be able to help you with that. Whatever. I always say I have a lot of friends. I don't have all the answers, but I do have a lot of friends, so I can usually steer you in the right direction.
thanks, Julie. That's such a generous offer. Any last words of wisdom that you'd like to share before we sign off here?
Well, I would say for those of you that are in the fertility um, issue, you're dealing with fertility issues, work on doing whatever is going to bring you peace and calm. And there's lots of ways to get there. This is one,
Mhm.
but that will serve you well. And educate yourself. That doesn't mean you have to believe everything even that we talked about today. But I always say, it's funny to me, but as I work with people with fertility issues, I feel like from a learning perspective, it's like a spiritual journey.
It really is.
It awakens parts of
Mhm.
yourself that you probably often didn't even know existed.
I have a running saying with my patients that I think when you're on your path or your journey to becoming a parent, it's like the healthiest version of yourself that you're ever
Mhm.
going to be.
Yes,
And I say the same thing as it is an awakening, a
yeah. Well,
spiritual
it's definitely
awakening,
to
a
me
physical
the most
awakening.
selfless act you'll ever do.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So, well, thank you so much, Julie, for all your advice and for being on my podcast and answering all of my questions. And I look forward to having you come out in the summer. And if anybody has any questions, everything will be listed on the show notes in terms of how to get a hold of Julie. And thank you again, Julie. And we miss you here in Orange County. Can't wait to see you soon.
Okay, thank
All right.
you.
Thanks, Julie.